Come on. Barbells and Bourbon, getting real with Shaun.
All right, Dan. You said you were afraid of a lot of things in the past. What's your biggest fear now as you sit here today?
We have all this technology back engineered from extraterrestrial crafts that have crashed and stuff like this. This night, I was leaving work. It was a Friday night. During shift change, they had a local police officer at the exit road of the plant. I was going across the tracks to get back to my hotel, and he waved me through. The last thing I remember is hearing a train whistle. And I look over, and I see the light.
Welcome to the Barbells and Bourbon podcast, where the conversations are raw, real, and relatable. I am your big, bald-bearded, barbell lifting, bourbon drinking son of a bitch, Shaun, and joining me today is Dan DeStephen.
Hey.
Welcome to our home, Dan.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Yeah.
I've been looking forward to our conversation for many reasons. I think the main reason is because I don't know anything about you other than kind of what I heard through your wife, who was a guest, right. Aubrey Warwick. Mm-hmm. I like to ask my guest a question as we start because I want the viewer to get something out of our conversation today.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that you want the viewer to get out of this as far as what you've dealt with through life experiences, overcome things, anything like that?
That's a good question. I would say probably the importance of facing your fears to overcome self-limiting beliefs and, things that hold us back, and getting out of your comfort zone and doing it consistently to actually grow and progress in your life. That's been just the kind of biggest theme for my life recently, especially. So, yeah.
I love that. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I know I can, because I think especially when you start something new or you're unfamiliar with something, fear is one of those feelings that come into play right off the bat. And fear limits a lot of people. And a lot of people don't want to move forward because of that fear. So
it's crippling. Yeah.
It is very crippling. But that's a great theme. I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. So I want to know more about Dan as a person. You've sort of dropped a few little hints and nuggets about what your value is and that you've overcome some things in the past. But your past has created who you are. And I want to build out that story of who Dan is as a person. Okay. So where are you from originally, Dan?
So I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia, born and raised there. Grew up with a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest. My sister's 18 months younger. My brother's about 4 years younger. And I guess growing up we had a pretty good childhood. Great parents. My dad was a civil engineer. My mom was an artist. And for me, I guess when my sister was born, my mom says that she invaded my kingdom and I didn't like it. So that kind of vibe kind of stuck with us for most of our childhood. We fought quite a bit. A lot of sibling interactions that didn't turn out so well.
Okay.
Got each other in trouble quite a bit. And my brother was like the little angel that stayed out of it and, never got touched. But that was most of my childhood. As far as, if we want to jump into like the fear and the things like that,
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what I realized looking back at my childhood, a lot of things that happened to me, I internalized and took very personal. Whether it was being disciplined by my dad or just after my sister and I fought or anything like that, or just things my friends would say or trying to fit in with other people, other crowds, and it just really affected me, and I took it very personally about my self-worth and who I was, and it built a lot of fear in me about showing up and just what people will think about me, the biggest fear, really.
So it probably made you very self-conscious about all the moves that you made and all the decisions that you made, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally. When I was in first grade, we moved up to Westchester, Pennsylvania from Richmond. My dad got a transfer, and then he started an office up there for about 3 years, and came back to the Richmond area in fourth grade. Had to make all new friends, And both experiences, I was just, getting to know people and still felt like an outsider and never felt accepted or like I fit in. And that was a big impact. And so that kind of stayed with me through middle school. Was probably the worst. I think it usually is for most people, So just trying to find the right group of friends and never really feeling accepted kind of thing. And it just kind of stuck with me.
Do you feel like you tried too hard to find a group of friends? Did you kind of seek them out? Did you try to change who you were to be able to fit in with certain groups?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. I was just real timid. I was always the quiet person, scared to be outgoing, really. And so I would modify my behaviors to try to fit in with different crowds and do different things that, I thought would go over well. And it was very, always very strategic. There was always this, I got these, get these people to like me so they'll accept me and I'll actually feel good about myself. And
sounds exhausting.
It was a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure
Sure.
on myself. And it just led to a lot of anxiety and just a lot of tension within and not healthy at all. Yeah.
So you kind of said earlier that you almost, I don't want to say you created a lot of these feelings, but your perception of certain situations might not have been actually factual, but you kind of changed the story and the dynamic of what actually happened. Do you ever think back at certain situations that happened in the past and thinking back on it now, you're like, oh, that I totally blew it out of proportion?
Totally.
Can
Certainly.
you give me some examples?
Now, being a father changed my perspective quite a bit. Okay. Like I would think about, the challenges that I have with my son and raising him. And, I look back at my parents and I realized, hey, they were doing the best they could. They were very good parents, but I took things out of context. Like I said, I personalized them and I made them really big deals that were, unfortunately, detrimental to my development as far as socially and being comfortable around other people.
Okay. So once you get out of middle school and you go into high school, did things get better or worse?
Eventually they got better. In high school, I was very fortunate to meet a group of friends that were very accepting, and it was like shocking to me. It was so surprising. Like, oh, wow, these guys
They
actually,
like me.
they like me. I was like, but still, I was still the quiet one. I was still very timid. I was told by my friends all the time, like, oh, these girls like you. And like, there was plenty of females that apparently liked me or were attracted to me, but I was just terrified of girls.
That's
that was
so
not
funny.
a thing. Yeah. So yeah, I never dated anyone in high school or anything like that. Yeah, my high school experience was improved. It helped my self-confidence a little bit, but not, I would say I was still a long way to go. Yeah.
This is also interesting because, again, I didn't know much about you. I know what's on the surface. I know what's on your social media accounts.
Yeah.
I know what I've seen of you in public. I've seen you at a few events, bodybuilding events, and you carry yourself as a confident man. I never would have guessed that you dealt with all of these internal struggles, which I'm sure you're still dealing with.
Well, yeah.
You've probably sort of perfected masking some of it.
Yeah.
As you mature, but
Yeah.
you would never know.
So with that, there's definitely a lot of masking. My whole life has been a lot of masking, trying to never letting anyone get that energy from me, just kind of feel what I'm going through. I was terrified to let people in and see that, the authentic part of me. So a lot of masking most of my life until I would say like the last three years or so. It's actually now I'm kind of overcoming this and changing it to where it's actually authentically me showing up, and I feel I don't have to put on a show because I can be myself,
Okay.
And it's been a long journey. Like I'm 45 years old now, and it's just kind of connecting. So yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
So you can actually look at yourself in the mirror and kind of accept what you see now.
Yeah, totally different perspective. Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but
They say the importance of loving yourself is kind of critical in how other people view you, how other people view you.
mm-hmm.
So can you say that you love yourself now?
Yes, that is foundational. Yeah, for sure. And that's come over the years, just accepting myself and being okay with who I am and realizing that I'm not this awful person that no one's going to like, and all these stupid stories that I was holding on to, that just stuck with me.
Did you ever go to therapy for any of this stuff?
No. So my journey was, there was a lot of action to overcome this starting about 3 years ago. Before then, I was just kind of wallowing in it and being miserable in it, and just trying to mask it and keep moving on with it. But I didn't face it or address it until then, and that's how I've kind of made the changes that I have.
I mean, you know what they say about hindsight, but do you wish you would have seeked out some help to get through some of these things earlier in life rather than waiting until you were 42?
Absolutely. I feel like I could have had a whole different experience, like, and just had people see me for who I am. And not that I didn't talk to anybody or anyone, but I definitely didn't engage with people to the extent that I would have liked to because of my inhibitions.
Your own fears.
Yeah, my fears. Yeah. So, absolutely. I feel like I probably missed out on a lot of little experiences that could have been great, to enrich my life.
So out of school, I'm sure you went to college because I know you're an engineer. Tell me about college life for you.
College life was it was a new beginning. I did have some friends. I went to Virginia Tech, did mechanical engineering. None of my friends, well, only a couple guys were in engineering, but it was a lot of being into new crowds and trying to figure it all out again. And I did pretty well with the folks there. It wasn't too bad. But then there was a lot of anxiety around girls and stuff, and it still never really got too far. I ended up my first really long-term relationship started in college with a girl I went to high school with, and I finally had some more confidence there, and that was great. And it lasted through all of college pretty much, which was great for me and helped me out a lot. But then it kind of fizzled out at the end when I got a job in Pittsburgh. I'd never been to Pittsburgh before, and the long distance thing was just very challenging. Sure. So, so that time after college was challenging. It was I was alone. I didn't know anybody up here. I just broken up with my girlfriend, and it was some low times as far as internally. I was very fortunate to meet some guys that had just started work at the same time as me, just got out of school, and it helped. But internally, I was a mess for several years.
I want to ask you about your relationships. I know you only had like one serious relationship up to this point, but girls like a confident man.
Yeah.
They don't want an insecure, jealous, non-dominating male figure.
Right.
How was your relationship with the Dan that was kind of unsure of himself?
In my first relationship, there wasn't a lot of the masculine energy there to provide anything. And it was, looking back at it, it was definitely lacking that. And the dynamic could have been a lot different, I think. I didn't identify it back then at all or realize that, of course.
Sure.
And I think it's one of the reasons why it fizzled out when I moved. Dating in my 20s was usually very limited. Alcohol was a lot of encouragement and helped me through sometimes, too much usually. I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people though. But, and then I was very fortunate to meet Aubrey, and that relationship really just skyrocketed my confidence and allowed me to be myself with somebody like I'd never been before. And I was definitely showing up with that energy, the more dominant energy, as she was getting to know me, and we just were just connecting and clicking and had that great chemistry, and it was amazing. Yeah, so that was huge for my comfort level.
So you felt accepted.
Yeah,
probably for the first time.
Yeah, like fully and completely. Yeah, I mean, not like I don't want to make it sound like I wasn't loved in my life by my friends or my family or like people, but
I meant more relationship wise.
Yeah, right.
You were able to just be yourself and not be afraid of how the other person was going to see you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very exciting time. Yeah.
So I want to talk about Aubrey for a second.
Sure.
So Aubrey was a guest on this show. Aubrey is a very powerful woman. She is a leader. She sort of commands attention.
Yes.
These are all compliments. These aren't like, what's wrong with you, Aubrey? But these are all, compliments
Absolutely,
to her.
Yeah.
How is your dynamic with her, being that you have kind of struggled with that dominating masculinity, confidence?
So that has been a challenge. That's something that I didn't realize was lacking until it became very obvious. She has that, I love that quote from your interview with her, where you ever want to punch somebody, like that's like some intense energy. She can be very intense at times, and I love it. She's an amazing person.
I always wanted to throat punch somebody. I've never done that. Have you?
Have I ever throat punch somebody?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. No.
Don't you?
Is that a common thing?
But yeah, she's very much has a very powerful energy to her. So I was not bringing anything to overcome that power, to shift the polarity there, to have that role to step into that role that she kind of wanted. She wanted to be more led, and I was definitely not leading. But I wanted to. It wasn't just her wanting that energy was what caused me to strive for it. It's like I wanted to break out of this. I didn't want to be stuck in my limiting beliefs, because I knew they weren't true. I just didn't know how to overcome them. And what happened over the years, we got married in 2011, so it's been a while now. But there came a point where I was just completely burnt out from work, just completely scattered energy, just stress, anxiety. I wasn't getting anything done. My job became something that didn't fulfill me anymore. I wasn't traveling. I used to travel all over the world and see the country and, go out on jobs with these different crews and having a great time. And then I became a manager, and it was just a whole nother world dealing with the corporate policies and procedures, especially in the nuclear industry. It's like, the way things get done is just so frustrating. It's so slow to,
Every decision takes forever.
Yes, it does.
I know this.
So living that day in, day out, it was just, I didn't know where else to go. It was like, but it was like, what they say, like a frog boiling in a pot of water. He doesn't realize it until it's too late. And it got to be too late. And this was probably 2021, so like 3 years ago, where it was just to a point where I was letting that energy of burnout and just frustration and anxiety spill over into my personal life. And I was very irritable. I was like a short temper, and I was just not fun to be around. And I mean, that wasn't our intimacy was a rock bottom, and it was a time where, we weren't sure which direction things were going to go. Really, with our relationship, it had been, almost a decade, and we're like,
Wow,
what's going on? Something needs to change. Yeah.
So, what was she trying to do to help you throughout all of this? I'm sure she saw you changing. Was she trying to support you? Was she mad? Like, how did that go as far as the support?
There was waves. We'll call it waves of different phases of emotions from one extreme to the other.
Like, they're there and get your shit together.
Yeah. Like I told you, DeStephen, come on.
Yeah.
But no, she was very supportive. I mean, she wanted our relationship to work. I mean, we both did. But it was just me not being able to show up. My cup wasn't full. I was just so just dead from my job that I didn't have anything else to give, and I didn't know where to get it from. And so I really needed to work on some things internally and, face these fears, face these self-limiting beliefs, whatever it was that was really stopping me from being the man who I wanted to be and being the man that she wanted me to be. And it like lit a fire under me. It's like, I gotta do this or it's over. And it's like,
late.
Yeah. So, but she was very supportive. But at the same time, she was very frustrated. And there's times where, she only has so much patience for these things. And, she's not perfect either. She's doing her own personal work on her end as well. So we're both kind of meeting somewhere with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that journey kind of kicked off in 2021, I would say.
Okay.
And it's just been a radical journey from there. Yeah.
So it's interesting, Dan, because I'm hearing that you sort of lost your purpose as far as, you said your cup wasn't being filled. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so much relationship wise, it was everything else.
Yeah.
Your job, you were used to traveling, seeing the world. You obviously enjoyed that. That was sort of taken away from you. Now you're essentially stuck behind a desk. for a 40 plus hours a week. So your enjoyment of life had been sort of diminished, and that was spilling into your relationship. So I think that's interesting because, you know, as a man, we feel like we need to serve a certain purpose in life, whether it's, you know, within our household or career-wise, financially, whatever it may be. And you were lacking in that area, and everyone else was victim to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was definitely a lack of clarity of what my purpose was anymore, as far as what am I passionate about, what's going to make me fulfilled, and how do I actually achieve it? I mean, I had some thoughts, some ideas, some dreams, we'll call them, because they were not very tangible.
Sure.
I was like, how am I going to get there? I'm this manager. I have to support my family. I have to do this job. This is what I've learned my whole life of how life is supposed to be. You go to work, you make the money, you do all that, and it just goes. And then it's like, wow, it's not working out.
Not to mention, I mean, you're in your young 40s at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'd be like, it's too late to start something new or try something different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and another, to add on to that, I was very negligent with our finances, and I allowed us to rack up quite a bit of debt. The one thing because I was not really standing up for myself or not knowing how to say no to other people, I call myself a recovering nice guy. I was just saying yes to everything. I didn't want to disappoint anybody. So yeah, we can do this, we can do that. So our lifestyle was good. We would go on vacation wherever we wanted, where we wanted, and I wouldn't say anything. And yeah, the credit cards started racking up, and I would get fortunate where I would get into some money or something, and I would be able to
pay them down
a little bit. So I was like, okay, it's not too bad. And it was never too bad, but it was just always lurking there, and it just added to my anxiety. It just keeps building and building. It's like this weight. That is such a weight on your shoulders. It's like, oh my God.
Financial stress is probably top 2 worst stresses you can have.
Yes. And so I was like, okay, there's really, I'm trapped. I felt trapped. Yeah.
What was your rock bottom? Can you think of like a moment or a thought where you're like, this can't get any worse?
It was about that time when I was mentioning where, you know, our relationship was just kind of crumbling, and we were like, which way do we go? And I was in a hotel room for a couple weeks there just because we just needed some distance and some time to regroup and to figure things out. And that was probably it. I mean, it was like, wow, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where this is going to go.
And you had your son at this point, right?
Yeah.
That adds a whole nother dynamic.
Oh yes. That complicates things quite a bit. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was probably it. And yeah, like I said, it kind of lit a fire under me to really, I mean, I have to do something. I was then determined, like there's action needs to be taken. I can't just say, oh yes, I understand, I'm going to do this. There was too much of that and no action. So action had to happen. And that's what sparked everything and really got me in a different trajectory, which has been amazing since then.
So I'm going to make an analogy. It could be terrible, but I'm allowed because it's my show. But this sounds sort of like what an addict would go through. Most addicts won't accept help unless they actually want help. And I've had a few on the show, and it took a moment in time where they looked at themselves in the mirror and they hated what they saw. And that was the spark that they needed to change. It sounds like that's kind of where you were at.
Yeah,
right.
I could totally see that. As far as like, an addict always going to something to get that release, to get that comfort, to restore some kind of, or numb something so that they can get to a place where everything's not as bad as, it looks. And I guess my comfort was complacency. Because I feared the unknown. I feared how am I going to change? How can I be different? I feared exposing myself, or I just felt like, how do I show up this way? I had been in this pattern of holding back, expressing myself for so long that I kind of lost touch with who is this person underneath, because I never expressed it. I didn't have any I wasn't building that muscle of expressing who I am. So I kind of didn't know like, well, who the heck am I? What do I like? What do I want?
Where do you start?
Yeah, I was these some basic questions. Like I had no clarity of direction for, and that was the part. Like I knew what she desired, but I didn't even know what I desired because I lost touch with it. You know, and that was that. Yeah, so I was addicted to staying complacent in that comfort of the known. Yeah.
So you had to essentially get reborn.
I feel like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
This is getting intense, Dan. I could use a drink. How about you?
Yes, that would be wonderful.
This has escalated quickly. Is there anything here that looks of interest to you that you want to try?
So, yes, I will. So when Aubrey was here, she had this Devil's Juice number 5.
Yes, she did.
And you guys were explaining how it's like a campfire and it's like smoky, and I was like, oh my God, I have to try. Like my favorite spirit is mezcal. I love like the smokiness and like that's my go-to. And so I was really intrigued. And so after, I saw the episode and everything, Aubrey and I were talking, we had this idea because I really like spicy things. Like I love heat. Like I've been known to win some pepper eating contests in the past. Habaneros and yeah, so I can put them down. I like my meals when they're good to me. They make my face sweat. That's like a good sign. Yeah.
So you like the pain?
I like the pain until it gets to your intestines. And then it's a bad pain. Yeah, but it enhances things for me. So we had this idea to make a Devil's Juice number 666, which would be like a bourbon mixed with. I have this thing I call hell honey, which is these hot pepper flakes that I've dehydrated from like Carolina Reapers, Trinidad Moruga scorpion peppers. These are like hotter than ghost peppers. And so I add them to a little bit of honey and just kind of spices things up a little bit for you. So we were going to mix a bourbon with the honey. And so I had that in mind. I went to this distillery, this McLaughlin distillery. Her folks live out that way, and I was in the area, so I stopped by, and I was like, okay, well, I'll pick up a bourbon here, and I'll do that. So I tried this, and I was like, oh, this is way too good. This was like an experience on its own. Like, you don't want to mess with that. Like, that's perfect. Shouldn't touch it.
It is good.
So amazing. And so then I found this other one. So I brought something with me from this distillery. Yeah.
Dan brought a gift.
So I picked this one. This is a hot cinnamon whiskey.
Nice.
But I thought it would be appropriate to mix with the hell honey. And do you like spicy at all?
I do.
Okay. So that we can make our own Devil's number 666 here. I got some spoons that we can stir it in and do the whole thing.
This is amazing. Do I need to sign like a disclaimer or something?
It might be a good idea.
Oh man.
So yeah, Aubrey and I, we like to get creative with stuff like this. We have a lot of fun with it.
You guys are hot smooches.
Hot smooches. That's pretty good. It's a little sweet. It'll go good with the heat.
So you did like the Devil's Juice?
Oh, amazing!
Isn't it good?
It's so good. Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite I've ever had.
All right. Pop.
So I haven't tried this yet, so we'll see what this combo looks like.
Should we put the honey in first? Or it doesn't matter?
I guess it doesn't matter. We'll go either way.
I don't want to overthink this. This is like a full-blown bar at this point, making our own little cocktails.
Little science experiment, mixologist kind of stuff. So you'll see there's some flakes in this honey. That's the good stuff. Don't be scared of this.
The good stuff. This is amazing.
A spoon for you to mix.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's your own risk. Yeah.
Is that too much?
No, that's probably fine. It depends on I'm not sure how well it'll mix and what.
Have you seen the show Hot Ones?
Oh, where they eat
with
the
wings?
Yes.
This is totally giving me
show.
Hot Ones vibes.
Totally. Yes. I didn't even think about that. That would have been fun. Could bring varying degrees of hell honey.
All right.
Hopefully that mixed a little bit.
Yeah, I think we got a little in there. All right. Cheers, Dan.
Cheers. I got a lot of the cinnamon heat. The peppers tend to kick in a little later.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've detected it yet, but
It's not as sweet as I thought it would be.
no.
What do you think?
I'm tempted to
Add more honey?
a little more, another dab, just to
Go for
get the
it.
full profile here with the.
I got like honey like
heat.
running down my glass here.
Oh yeah, have to wash that good.
Oh yeah, I got some honey in that sip.
Yeah.
Got the sweetness there. What were we talking about?
Fear, something like
Fear.
that.
So what was the turning point, Dan, that, you're staying in a hotel room, Aubrey and your son are at home. What was that moment that kind of brought you out of that darkness and helped kind of rekindle that relationship?
So I had to do something different. I had to learn how to overcome my fears. So a lot of things happen very rapidly, kind of self-improvement activities that I needed to go through. And so 3 big ones that were, very like all pretty much at the same time. So I just started looking around. One thing was I got introduced to Tony Robbins, and I did every event he has under the sun.
Really?
Every single one of them. It cost a little bit of money, but I did every single one of them, and it was amazing. He's just phenomenal at what he does. He knows what he's doing, and it's like if you want to up level your life and get out of some stuff, that's it's not a
Good
bad
place
way
to
go.
start. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one was Unleash the Power Within, and this was right after COVID. So he just started doing these virtual events. Normally you have to go to Fiji for these things, and it's like, okay, well, I'll just do it online.
You're
That's
already
great.
in credit card debt.
Okay, so that worked out. So that was good. It was very impactful. Just looking at my self-worth and looking at some direction of where do I want my life to go, and kind of taking ownership of that, and not being a victim, not releasing any kind of victim mentality of, oh, I'm just a shy person. Oh, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I don't know how to be masculine the way she wants. I don't know how to show up this way, whatever it is, in intimacy or whatever it is. And I had all these stories about myself. So it's like rewriting your stories. It was kind of the theme of it. And it was huge. Opened my eyes quite a bit. It's very immersive. It's like a 3-day thing, but then you're done with that. And then it's like, okay, now I got to take that back to my reality and integrate it somehow. Yeah. So that's a big process, and it's tough to do. At the same time, very close, I don't remember which one I did first. I stumbled upon this plant medicine journey in Belize with these shamans, and we did some ayahuasca ceremonies. Okay. So Aubrey went with me. We went to Belize for 10 days, and that's a whole nother experience.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, it's facing some demons, really kind of just sitting with traumas and trying to get to the bottom of them and discovering what's really trapped down inside and trying to move that energy and release that energy. And it doesn't have to be done with plant medicine, but it helped facilitate that when the people that had this very sacred ritual that they would take us through. And it really, for me, it did a lot. So we had like 3 nights in a row, all night long. There was a handful of people there, and a lot of them were like throwing up, purging, and all this stuff. Like it's energetic purging, and I guess it's physical too. I was fortunate I did not throw up at all, because it looks pretty miserable if you do.
Gosh.
But no, it was really, by the 3rd night, I was really feeling some just energy moving in my body, some dense energy. Like they say, like you can store these traumas in your body, like lower in your body. And it was just kind of coming up for me, and I had some really beautiful moments after these ceremonies of expressing myself to other people and like feeling connection with other people and kind of facing a fear a little bit and being vulnerable and feeling accepted. And there was a lot of that kind of very helpful confidence building kind of stuff. Yeah. So, and I found like a really good spiritual type family there, environment. So it felt really good, and that was very helpful. I did another ceremony with another shaman later that year here locally that by chance that was worked out really well. So that's been very helpful for me. I would recommend it if people are interested in it. And then the third thing that has been probably the most impactful that I've been doing consistently for the past 3 years is men's work. And so this was so random. Aubrey, we were listening to this one podcast of this girl and her husband happened to do this men's work stuff, and he was promoting this online like 6-month container or 3 month. I think it was only like a couple months at the time. And I had no idea what men's work. I never even heard of it before. No clue. But the first thing I had to do entering the group was to make it was done in Telegram. There's like a Telegram chat that everyone introduced themselves with. And it was like, take a video of yourself and tell these people like something you don't want them to know about yourself. So it's like getting vulnerable right away with a bunch of strangers. Yeah. And I was terrified. I was like sweating. I was like, this is awful. I was like, yeah, this so scared just to introduce myself and tell people what I was, something I didn't want them to know about me. And it's like, wow. I look back at that now and it's like,
it almost seems silly.
It's hilarious to me. It's like, how could that have been a real thing for me? And it was so real. Yeah. And so we worked through that. I worked through that for quite some time, and I was kind of getting into it, and it was really helping my confidence, being vulnerable with other people, sharing things that I wouldn't share with anybody, and doing it with men, because I've been vulnerable with women before. It was easier for me, but with men, it's like that. There's something about that where guys don't talk about this stuff, and I just kind of, I guess the male influences in my life were always, as a child, I guess I look back at my childhood and I realized where these thoughts came from. It was like, oh, these other guys in school don't like me, and and they were, maybe playing sport, whoever it was, they had that masculine energy, and it was like, oh, that's scary stuff. I don't want to touch that. Or if it was my dad's energy, or whatever it was, it really made me think that it was a toxic thing, and I didn't want to go there. And I realized that. But then talking to these guys, and everyone had so many similar stories, and I realized like I'm not alone. And that was the first time I felt like I'm not alone.
Wow.
That was huge. I was like, wow, I just shared all this, and these guys can relate to me. They feel the same way, not the same situation, but they can, similar feelings and emotions. And it's like, I didn't know that. I thought I was the only one.
So I'm hearing this, and you tried these 3 things, which are out of the box.
Yeah.
And you were a man that was essentially living life afraid, but you had enough courage to try these completely off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say like voodoo, whatever, but out of the ordinary practices.
There's some aspect of fear that left me when I got hit by a train. And I think Aubrey shared that story a little bit.
I was wondering how to transition into that, but you just did it.
And yeah, so, and what it gave me, well, there's a whole physical transformation that it gave me as a side effect, I suppose. But what it internally, mentally and emotionally, what it gave me was this sense of I'm here for a reason. There's more that I need to experience in this life, and there's some purpose, which I don't know what it is, but there's a reason why I'm not dead right now. I didn't know what it was, but it just left me with this faith, you could call it, or just this knowing, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm here and for a reason, and to serve this purpose, whatever it is, wherever it goes. So I'm going to be willing to try various things. And for a lot of this stuff is like, I'm scared of very little physically. Like I have no fears of like, I like bungee jumping, I like skydiving, I like all these other things. I like to challenge myself, and I've challenged myself a lot more, but that was kind of initiated this faith and just kind of locked it in that I need to start doing some things then, and it's not going to be the end of the world. And so that kind of put when these things came across and I was at my rock bottom, I was like, okay, I can do these, I can do this, I can do this. And I had all these things I had never known anything about until that point in time, and they just kind of presented themselves to me. So I just jumped on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to hear more about that day that you were hit by a train.
Yeah.
Aubrey did touch on a little bit of it. She had shown me the YouTube videos after the accident. Mm-hmm. So walk me through that night.
Okay. So I was working at a power plant south of Chicago, and I was project manager on this job and working long shifts. I was working 14-hour shifts, waking up at like 4 or something in the morning to get there. And so this night I was leaving work. It was a Friday night. It was about 7 in the evening, getting like 7:30 or so. And it was raining. It was starting to get dark. And during shift change, they had a local police officer at the exit road of the plant, directing traffic to, just get people in and out of the plant. And so on this road where if leaving the plant, there's an intersecting road and it has railroad tracks down the middle of it, splitting the road. So one way this way, one traffic coming the other way, between the tracks. And the cop stopped the car in front of me, let him turn right. I was going across the tracks to get back to my hotel, and he waved me through. So I went through. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, crossing the tracks. I'd done it every single day for about a week now that I've been on site. It was no big deal. I had my windows up because it was raining. I had my music blasting so I could stay awake. And so, yeah, and that was it. There was no gates for any trains coming like that. It was just a post with flashing lights. He had a squad car sitting there that also had flashing lights on it. So it didn't really catch my eye or anything like that. And the last thing I remember is hearing a train whistle. And I look over and I see the light and it's coming right at me, and hits the passenger side, the rear passenger side door. And then I don't remember anything, but apparently it flipped me like 40 yards down the track, shredded my car to pieces. And you've seen the YouTube video.
And I'm going to show some of those clips here. Yeah.
Pretty much the only thing left was my seat that was intact, where it wasn't just shredded. I mean, it was a miracle. A split second sooner, later, I would not be here. So the crazy part is, so I woke up in the ambulance. I didn't know what happened. My back was in so much pain. I was just screaming, and it was terrible. And it took the whole ambulance ride to the hospital for me to realize what had happened. I heard them talking on the radio to the police or whoever they were talking to. And it was like, I couldn't believe it. But apparently there are eyewitnesses that said that I got out of the car on my own energy. And I was talking to the ambulance when they got there, the medics and everything. And then I passed out, but I have no recollection of that whatsoever. Like, it's just total shock to my system.
I would have thought you were like The Walking Dead.
Yeah. Seriously, yeah, I can't imagine.
To walk out of the car.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I have no idea what I said or anything that happened there. But so it ended up, I broke my L1 through L5 lumbar vertebrae, the transverse processes on either side. I was very fortunate that, and it was like the torsion of twisting that like snapped these little things off the end. I was fortunate that there was the lower L1 through L5 and not anything higher, because right above that is where it starts to support your ribs. And if any of those cracked, it would have been probably another story, you know?
Oh yeah, piercing your lungs or whatever.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, I mean, like I said, the circumstances couldn't have been any more in my favor.
If you're going to get hit by a train, get hit the way you did.
Exactly. Yeah.
Said no one ever.
If you're ever going to get hit by a train, do it that way.
What the fuck?
Right? So, I mean, I was in a back brace for about 6 months, and that was it. I didn't have to have any surgery. I didn't have any disc damage or anything like that. I had, stitches all over from little cuts and stuff, but that was it.
So who was to blame for this? Was there any investigation that went into this accident after the fact that you can talk about?
Yeah, no, I had to give my statement when I was on morphine at the hospital. They came in to take my statement. I was like, really? Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then, when we were leaving, we were like, yeah, we want to redo that because I wasn't in my mind, and they were like, no, it's already on the record and all this stuff. And it's like, okay. So after that, I went home from the hospital. I stayed in the hotel for about a week. My mom and my dad came up and were taking care of me. And yeah, getting back home, there was a workers' compensation case which went through, and that there was another. We tried to file another case for negligence, and it didn't go anywhere because apparently, in the state of Illinois, you can't sue anybody for negligence if they're on the police force or something, and it has to be willful misconduct or something crazy like that.
So negligence by that officer that was waving you on.
Right, right, yeah, because I wouldn't have gone if he didn't wave me on, honestly. But that didn't go anywhere. But I did find out the officer got fired after that a little while later. I don't know.
Coincidence?
Yeah. Who knows? But yeah. So yeah.
Damn. So I've also seen pictures of you taking a dump on the train tracks.
Oh. Yeah.
Explain that. I might not share that one.
Yeah. So our friends lived nearby there at the time, in the next town over, and it was Aubrey's friend from college. She's also a photographer, and yeah, we were just goofing around. I was like, okay, this is my revenge, and so I just did like we went to the gas station, bought a newspaper, bought a pack of cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I thought it would be cool, just just casually reading the paper, smoking a cigarette, taking a dump on the tracks. Like, you take that, you railroad. I'll get you.
Who's the winner now?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just some humor.
That was funny. It
was a good time.
It's good that you can find humor in
Yeah.
such a tragic situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Dang, man. I mean, I knew you got hit by a train, but hearing the whole story is really crazy.
Yeah, it blows my mind. I still can't believe it. Yeah.
So that was in 2011, you said?
That was 2008.
2008.
Mm-hmm. That was actually when Aubrey and I just started dating, like a couple months prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was, very lucky. It wasn't worse. And yeah, so she really helped me. She really supported me through all this. And over the years, she's into fitness and things like that. I was at my worst as physically,
Sure.
Laid up for 6 months. I was about, I want to say 10 pounds heavier than I was at that time. And at that weight I was about 10 pounds heavier at the end of my 20s than I was when I got out of school. So it's gradually bulking up a little bit, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
But basically it wasn't so much training, it was more nutrition, like changing my nutrition. Like, she showed me a lot of things, and it just made a huge difference.
No one wants to hear that.
Yeah, that's where it's at.
That's the secret recipe.
Yeah, that is where it's at. And so literally, and it was, I think the year was 2014, I started eating differently and totally transformed completely. And the next year I went to Las Vegas with her, and I competed in like a Fitness America thing. It was like a model thing. It wasn't like I wasn't a bodybuilder by any means, but
Sure.
I felt confident enough that I could get up there, and I didn't do half bad,
Yeah.
So it was incredible. I got the best shape of my life in my mid 30s, better than I was in high school. I was like, couldn't believe it. Yeah.
You said you're afraid. You're not afraid.
Oh, that was a big moment too. I mean, these were all like terrifying. Yeah. Going up on a stage, and I was, oh my gosh. Yeah. That got my heart beating.
So, I know you dabble in fitness, which is a coping mechanism. It helps people get through depression and anxiety and stress. And, it's therapy for me. It's kind of like my church.
Yeah.
In a way. But I also know you dabble in some music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you brought Toco la Guitarra with you.
I did.
You want to play a song for us?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Let's do
it.
All right. So, in the spirit of facing fears, I thought about what would be the most entertaining, fun, uncomfortable, scary thing I could do. And a custom song seemed to fit the bill. So I was at a men's retreat a couple months ago, and I did a custom song for it. So it's kind of feeling that vibe. So I have a custom song for you for this show. I don't have it memorized. All right, here we go.
And this song is titled Barbells and Bourbon.
Barbells and Bourbon.
That's amazing.
Yes. Barbells and Bourbon, getting drunk with Shaun. The drinks that he's serving, gonna rock you all night long. Barbells and Bourbon, yeah, getting drunk with Shaun. The drinks that he's serving, gonna rock you all night long. Heavyweights and whiskey, what could possibly go wrong? Seems a little risky, what don't kill you makes you strong. Barbells and Bourbon, give it all you got. It's a little bit unnerving, pushing 80 pounds and pounding shots. Barbells and Bourbon left me a mess. Gonna need a surgeon after that drunken clinging press. Get drunk, lift weights, break a toe, feeling great. Little tipsy, doing squats, superset, I better not. Barbells and Bourbon, getting drunk with Shaun. Drinks that he's serving, gonna keep you going all night long. So I wrote that, and I realized that your show's less about getting drunk at the gym than the name might imply.
Right.
So I did it. I kind of rewrote it after that, after I watched a few episodes. So I'm going to do it again, a different version. And this version, I'm gonna do the chorus twice at the beginning.
Okay.
And we'll see if you can sing along with me the second time. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. All right. I think you'll like this one better. Maybe. All right. Here we go. Barbells and Bourbon, getting real with Shaun. The truth that he's serving, gonna carry on and on. Come on. Barbells and Bourbon, getting real with Shaun. The truth that he's serving is gonna carry on and on. Lifting weights or sipping whiskey, either way you'll feel the burn. Like our trials and tribulations and the lessons that we learn. Seeking potent inspiration, authentically expressed. With 80 proof libations that'll put hair on your chest. Now pain is universal, but I think you're gonna see. When you open up your heart, the truth shall set you free. Culture thinks unique to you, well it resonates with me. And we can all relate to life's insanity. Come on, Barbells and Bourbon, getting real with Shaun. The truth that he's serving, gonna carry on and on.
Dude, that was... You just wrote my theme song.
If you
and
like
didn't
it,
even realize
you can use either one. I mean,
but I mean, so that was great. The work you put into that for today is fantastic. But you bring up a very interesting point. The first version is what people probably think when they hear Barbells and Bourbon, right?
Sure,
That
sure.
we're going to sit down, we're talking about working out, and we're going to be sipping on some bourbon. It's going to be very masculine energy.
right.
That is so far from the truth. And, you know, I hope there's people out there that watch this that aren't clicking away because they think every episode is going to be just a bunch of bros talking about, you know, getting big and protein shakes. And
Right.
that is not what this is all about. This is my brand. And I've been saying the barbells represent strength of my guest to sit here and open up about vulnerable things, intimate things, very personal things in their life that they've barely told anybody about before.
Yeah.
And then the bourbon is the comfort of my home, the environment,
Nice. Yeah.
and me just being an open ear for you to be able to talk about those things. So,
I like that. Yeah. Very cool.
but that was fantastic.
Thanks.
Super cool.
Yeah.
We might have to talk after this to get you to like lay down an actual.
Yeah. For a reasonable fee,
Lick.
I could do something for you. Yeah. Yeah. We could look into something. Yeah.
Work on his credit card debt. Just kidding. No, that was freaking amazing.
I have another part of my life that I don't disclose to a lot of people. It's almost like an alternate world that I live in sometimes with my brother. So my grandfather had a career in the military. He started in the Air Force in 1947, and he was in there for 20 years. Then he retired and went into an organization called the National Reconnaissance Office, which was a secretive organization up until the 90s. There wasn't a lot known about it, and they became public. And then in 2003, he came out with a book called Life with a Cosmos Clearance. And my brother and I, my family, we found out about this. We didn't realize he was putting a book together until after it came out. And a lot of things in there were very hard to believe. Very from the title, it had a lot to do with UFOs, extraterrestrials, and things like this. So I'll start with a little background on this whole thing. In the mid to late 90s, I would go out to see my grandfather in the summertime for like 2-3 weeks at a time. He lived in, first he lived in Dallas, Texas, then he lived in Taos, New Mexico. And so I'd started going when I was like 6 years old, going out to visit him and stuff like that during the summer, because we were on the East Coast. And in the mid to late 90s, when I was a teenager, when I got out to visit him, all of a sudden he started talking about UFOs, and he had an encounter with a UFO when he was in the Air Force back in 1949 and towards the beginning of his career. And he would tell me these things about, we have all this technology back engineered from extraterrestrial crafts that have crashed and stuff like this. And he would tell me that he had positions within the government where he was required to kind of convince people that they weren't real and kind of have some disinformation out there to keep it a secret. And the reason that it had to be a secret was because with this technology, with this anti-gravitational electromagnetic propulsion, you no longer rely on oil, and that would destroy the economy and all this stuff. And so that's why the powers that be would not allow that to happen. And that was the story. And he had a lot of involvement with these particleization, he called it, materialization of things, and just technologies that were mind-blowing. And he told me about UFOs in Nazi Germany in World War II, and down in Antarctica they had bases and all this stuff, and it was crazy. And I had never heard anything like that. I never heard him talk about that at all. I was like, okay, Grandpa.
Grandpa's losing it.
Yeah, I don't know. So I never really talked to anyone about it. And then I guess it was late, around 2000, he started to have these little mini strokes, and his health was really deteriorating. And so, and I went to college, so I didn't go see him all the time anymore. And I didn't realize what was going on, or that he was, as I mentioned, that he was putting this book out. Someone helped him write this book of all of his experiences and what he knew, his knowledge. And it came out in 2003. And then we read it, and he said, he had a clearance 38 levels above top secret within the military. It's like, okay, I didn't even know that was possible. It's like, the president's here, and this is like way up here. Like, he had charts of all this stuff, and I was like, okay, wow. And it turns out we didn't know this either, but he was part of this event in 2001 called the Disclosure Project by Dr. Stephen Greer, where he was one of 21 military witnesses that came forward to the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. and testified before Congress about their experiences in the military and the crafts they've seen and the things. And so he was not alone. And the 21 people that came forward that day was just a small subset of like about 500 witnesses that this gentleman had put together and documented throughout the 90s. So crazy. And you see some stuff coming out now where they're coming out again with this disclosure, talking about this one guy, David Grush. I don't know if you saw some stuff from him, but testifying in front of Congress about, this happened probably like 2 summers ago, saying that, there's UFOs out there, there's things going on, but we don't know what they are. We have no idea what's happening. Meanwhile, 23 years ago, my grandfather and 20 other guys were saying, we know what this is. We actually have this technology, and it's been there for a long time. And that was right before 9/11. So it didn't get a lot of coverage. The media didn't want to cover it. It didn't really go anywhere. But now it's kind of, you see it more often now, especially with the internet. Things have changed dramatically. Mm-hmm. And So yeah, his book's out. My brother and I were like, okay, and our whole family really is like, is any of this real? We still weren't sure because he unfortunately, as his health deteriorated, he passed away shortly after. So we never really got to talk to him or ask him questions about it, unfortunately. Wish we would have been able to. So over the years, through the internet, we start to see some things. My brother's very much into it. He inherited my grandfather's book collection, so he's reading all these different books, and kind of spikes his curiosity. And I had similar curiosities, after hearing that as a teenager, and then seeing what had happened, all these things he was involved in. So yeah, we found all these different shows of people coming forward with similar information that he had put out like 10 years before. And I know he had talked about it even earlier than that from when he told me personally. So it was like, makes you think, well, okay, what's going on here? And so we've seen a lot of corroborating information from various sources. We don't know how true any of it is, but people have had these experiences and a lot of claims of our government is hiding all these secrets and stuff like this. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories, people like to call them, and there's plenty out there, and there's plenty that are by far not true, and it's very obvious, I think, in my opinion, but it's something you have to leave to your own discernment. So it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
Haven't really told anyone about it, but my brother and I, so my brother, he's very passionate about it because he kind of got into it more than I did, but about just putting the story, not trying to convince anyone, but just like informing people that this may be a thing, and just presenting the information. So we went to he got me to go to a conference with him, a disclosure conference, about disclosing UFOs and stuff like that in 2019. We met all these speakers at this conference that knew our grandfather. They actually had met our grandfather and remember him. I don't know. Have you ever heard of David Wilcock?
That doesn't ring a bell.
He's an author. He talks about stuff like this, but he's very good at doing a lot of research and investigating things, and he's very science-based with a lot of his material, but he talks about, the UFO stuff, and he quoted our grandfather several times in his book, and he actually met our grandfather in 2001 at this other disclosure project thing. And so we had all these people that actually had met him and knew of him, and so Derek started connecting with this network of people, and he got interviewed on a podcast of somebody, and just by chance, I showed the interview to someone that I had randomly had a connection on Facebook with, who was starting up their own internet platform, like website, where they would have shows and content about all kinds of different topics. And he was like, "Oh, do you want to have a show?" I was like, "What? Okay, well, sure." I talked to my brother. He's like, "Okay, we'll have a show." So we started to do like a monthly show on this guy's platform for about 2 years, maybe. And then he stopped doing the content because he was doing something else. And we started our own YouTube channel because we had all these guests. We were interviewing people much similar like this that have experiences, and just, again, not trying to convince anyone that anything is true, but just presenting the information and letting people make a decision for themselves of, that this is a possibility. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the last couple of years.
So are your guests like eyewitnesses or experts in the field, or a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not like focused in on one thing. It's, people who have had experiences, people who, ex-military people or whoever it is, it doesn't have to be anything, in particular. But so it's really interesting. Yeah.
I know what I believe. In this universe, we are a little speck.
Yes, we are.
In this universe. The odds of there not being another living being, civilization, whatever it may be, is super slim, I think. Like, there's probably a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that we are one of many civilizations out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure, based upon your experience, you agree.
Yeah. NASA has admitted that there's like, I don't know, I don't remember the numbers, unfortunately, but like a couple 100 billion inhabitable planets just in our galaxy alone that could sustain life like the Earth. So the chances of us being the only one is like, the odds are not in that favor at all.
Sure.
It's like, yeah, there's bound to be something out there, right? And just our galaxy.
Not to get too like scientific here or too logical, but I think what the distance is between Earth and these other galaxies being hundreds of thousands of light years, that's why we'll never know. Right?
Yeah. And the fascinating thing to think about is, those civilization, or say there's civilization somewhere out there light years away, they may have been around millions of years before us. So they may have evolved and be like thousands and millions of years ahead of us. So
Sure.
imagine the technology they could have by that time, and the trajectory that we've come in the last 100 years, let alone the last 20 years, of how it's ramped up exponentially. Think of that kind of future humanity 1,000 years from now, where we'll be and the capabilities we'll have. So
Now that you're armed with this knowledge and you were doing the show for a while, are you continuing to kind of do your investigation and your research, or have you sort of just kind of...
Yeah. I mean, we're still doing it. It's kind of cool to see, people following us now and having a presence in this community. It's kind of cool. I mean, and it's always interesting. I always want to learn. And my brother and I are really interested is what our grandfather said true. I mean, we're still genuinely interested, not just like for entertainment value, but for us to see what's going on, So we come across a lot of things that are really fascinating. That's like shed some light on what he's talking about. And it's like, wow, we might not be that far off, and there's a lot of mixed information we're getting. It's like, so we're not sure what's really true or not, but it's always something that's kind of in the back of our mind, like what happened.
Are you getting any pushback? Like, keep your mouth shut, DeStephen. You know what I mean?
No. Right now, in the way this community has evolved, there probably was a lot more of that earlier when it first started coming out, but it's getting more accepted, and there's now like conferences all over the place that people go to and talk about this stuff and present, things, and there's so many aspects to it that it's not. I've never had that experience yet. So
No one with black suit and sunglasses knocked on your door yet.
Not yet. No. But for me, to relate to what we're talking about, to kind of get back to it, like I've never told anybody about this, that my brother and I do this in my personal life or my public life. I'm just Daniel on this podcast. I'm not Dan DeStephen, and my identity is not like connected here. So it's kind of like my merging right here on this very moment of
full circle
all
moment.
all this information. So yeah, it's kind of I think a fear that I've been holding on to. Just what are people going to think of me
being
now?
judged.
Yeah, being judged for sure, and that one I've been trying to overcome for so long. So.
I mean, I get it. I mean, I don't want to say it's like a really off the wall topic, but it's a very controversial one.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's kind of where the hatred or the
exactly
you're a weirdo thing could kind of come in.
Yeah.
But look, there's people that believe in things that are a lot more far-fetched than UFOs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's been enough evidence to prove that there's likely something out there.
I think so. Yeah. It's kind of come into the mainstream more, and there's a narrative that's obviously being portrayed right now within the government and those higher powers that they want us to believe. But I do think there's an alternate truth behind a lot of it that so much just doesn't make sense after you hear all the information.
Sure. What do you think of Bigfoot, Dan?
Oh God. I'm not ruling it out. It's kind of esoteric, it's kind of getting out there, but I can't confirm or deny the existence of Bigfoot.
Okay. I believe in UFOs more than I believe in Bigfoot.
I think that's probably, I would take that same stance.
You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start a show. Bigfoot or UFOs? Here, we'll get rid of that, and you can have that one.
Thank you.
Well, you've watched some episodes, so you know what's about to happen.
Dude, I totally forgot.
Is that one of your biggest fears? Look, I've been out of the gym for about 2 months because of all of my health issues. So
So you're saying I have a chance?
You're saying there's a chance.
I doubt it.
We'll put it this way.
I strongly doubt it.
If there's a chance, you have more chance now than ever before. So
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to help you or not.
Oh, Lord.
And I'm going to ask you a question as we do this. All right, Dan. Mount up.
Here we go. God.
You can start when you're ready.
Okay.
Go ahead. All right, Dan. You said you were afraid of a lot of things in the past. What's your biggest fear now as you sit here today?
Leading up to this moment, this podcast.
Really?
Yes.
So
This is. So you mentioned you've seen me on social media. Like that's me facing my fears of being seen. Honestly, so that's me continually striving to get out of my comfort zone and do something that, is not something that I feel, 100% confident with, and just doing it and going live on social media. It's like, okay, yeah, I started doing that, and it's like, ooh, it's a lot of big feelings, a lot of big energy comes up, heart starts pounding, all that kind of stuff. And honestly, thinking about this podcast and doing this was like, wow, this is a full, exposure of me. I'm going to be vulnerable to a lot of people that I don't know in a bigger way than I ever have before. Talking about a lot of things that I've never talked to anybody about.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that way. So not only were you nervous just because of the event of the show, but you had to face a lot of your fears and expose a lot of those fears.
Yeah.
So it was kind of exponentially nerve-wracking for you.
But ultimately, my goal is to up-level my life and to be able to express myself, because I feel like my authentic expression of myself is really going to allow me to be who I want to be and just be myself and not worry about other people's judgment. And so that's why this was very meaningful for me. I may have played it up in my mind more than it really was.
Well, as you did most of your life, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I've been holding on to this quote for a while now that's really empowered me. It's the, I probably won't get it right, but the cave you fear the most holds your greatest treasure, or something to that effect. Hide your greatest treasure. Yeah. So I felt like all these things, putting myself out there, I want to be seen. I want to express myself. I want people to know who I am, but I was terrified to do it.
Yeah, I like that, Dan. Now I'm going to kind of call you out on a nerve-wracking event that I witnessed you enduring lately.
Okay.
The OCB bodybuilding show which just happened in Pittsburgh was a month and a half ago. Mm-hmm. You were DJing the event and running into a lot of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I knew nothing about you other than you're Aubrey's husband. You got hit by a train. Mm-hmm. That was about it.
Right.
And I see this man behind the console struggling to play the right song, the right volumes, and the tracks aren't playing, and it's playing the wrong song.
Yeah.
And you seemed very frustrated and like you wanted to hide. And I kind of felt your pain. I'm like, this poor guy. You had your sunglasses on, like you were trying to stay as
Yeah.
What did you feel like in that moment? Were you like petrified?
There was a lot of panic. I just felt really bad. I mean, so this show, the way it's set up is they each have their 1 minute T-walk thing. So the bodybuild, this was in the morning for the men's bodybuilding part of it. So they each go out there and they send me the music they want to hear. Sometimes they don't know how to make the clip of the MP3, so I have to go and get it and clip it and splice it and all the good stuff. So there was some preparation into getting all this music for these people, all the competitors, to do their thing. And I had it all situated. This is like, I think my third time doing it, fourth time maybe. And everything was good to go. And then I have no idea what was going on with my computer, but it would not play the right file. And so thank God I was able to go find the email of some of these guys that had sent me something and the email version that they sent me worked, and I was like, okay, because all I did was download some of them that I already had it done. It was like I just downloaded the file and changed the name. That's, I mean, it should play, right?
Yeah.
And it could just, I couldn't figure it out, and so it was just like panic, major panic, yeah. And it was terrible, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I felt for you, and you know, luckily, you know, Aubrey was emceeing, and she does a really good job of filling the gaps.
She's very, very talented. She's
Yeah.
very natural at it and makes it
Yes.
look easy. And she helped me quite a bit through that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was entertained while I
Yeah.
panicked. It worked out.
Getting a thumbs up from DeStephen back.
Yeah.
Or the,
Oh man.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, knowing what I know about you now, I feel even more for you for, you know, just you being in that situation. I'm sure it was uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Before we close out, Dan, do you have any questions for me?
What are your biggest fears?
Failing my family. And that's kind of like a broad statement. That could be like financially, it could be emotionally supportive. I want to be that key component in my family's life that they know they can go to for any problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The rock
Yeah,
of the family.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm always afraid of crumbling and not being able to be that rock. And I've been crumbling lately, as some of you might know. But yeah, trying to keep that strength and that, you know, image of stability, even though I'm at my weakest,
Yeah.
I put a lot of pressure on myself for that. So yeah, I fear just crumbling and not being able to take care of the ones that I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably most men do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you know, if you would have asked me that 6 months ago, that might not have been my answer.
Yeah.
But being what I've been through, you know, that's kind of where I am right now,
Right.
what I'm feeling. So
Yeah. Can't
Yeah.
blame you for that.
yeah, 6 months ago, a year ago, it would have been starting a new path, starting a new career,
Yeah.
starting a podcast,
Right? Yeah.
you know, something like that. But that has shifted entirely.
Yeah.
So yeah, good question.
Yeah. We'll have a new fear for you if you want to try it. Freestyle rapping in front of somebody you don't know.
That's random.
It's something that it's terrifying because you're on the spot. You have to think of, you know, whatever comes to your mind. You can't prepare for it, and you're just okay. Whatever comes out, and you're trying to do your best.
Hold on. What? How do you get in that situation that you have to do that?
It's a challenge that I've done in my men's work just with these guys, and
Okay.
it's fun, but it's nerve wracking. Yeah, but it's try it sometime. You'll see.
Okay. Put that on my list. I did have to. So, kind of a side story. I have like a part-time gig as dressing up as superheroes. I mainly do Captain America, but
Okay.
I've also been Batman and Spider-Man and all the other mans.
Yeah.
But I had to give a speech at a wedding as Batman. And I had to write the speech
As Batman.
as Batman. So I'm walking out onto the dance floor in front of hundreds of people.
Oh, wow.
Dressed as Batman. The bride and the groom didn't know I was going to be there. This was set up by the groom's father. So he gave me some information about the bride and the groom, and I had to come up with a speech. So that was nerve-wracking. Even though I'm covered, nobody knew who I was. Speaking in front of hundreds of people, dressed up, and I did the voice too.
You did?
Yeah, I was like,
That's great. You got to do the voice.
"Good evening." Like everybody was just like, "What?" Like I just like commanded everyone's attention.
That's
It was
hilarious.
great though. I don't think I have any videos of it anymore, but that was a good time.
Awesome.
Not quite as bad as freestyle rapping. I'm gonna have my next guest freestyle rap
There you go.
during the arm wrestling.
Oh, that's
Oh.
excellent. Yeah. That's
No
a good
pressure.
One. That's a good one. Yeah.
Well, then it's been a pleasure. Seriously, I had no idea that you were as deep as you are. I guess you can say. Not that to be critical, but you run deep, as do all of my guests. If you ask the right questions and you give them the space to talk,
Yeah.
Most people are very, very complex and interesting people.
Yeah.
So you're one of them.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been great being on here.
I appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it.
You're the man. Don't forget to watch the next episode. Please subscribe. It's completely free. All it costs is a click. And I will see you on the next episode of Barbells and Bourbon. Peace.
Yeah, buddy.